you want to stop having and feeling that resentment, that anger, I'm really excited for you guys to get to understand this concept.
Hi, my name is Cherie, and this is Life is Cherry.
Hi guys, thanks for coming back and hanging out again. I just want to jump right into what I want to talk about today, and that is learning how to be a creator of your own world and have the freedom of joy work for you every day in your life, starting today. This is a concept that I fully believe in because I've seen it work in my own life where I've had resentment, I've had anger, I've had arguments that didn't need to happen, and it was all due to something that I didn't realize that I could actually control. All these things seemed to be out of my reach, out of my control, and they were plaguing my life. They were plaguing my mind, and I couldn't ever move forward because I couldn't get away from these things, because these things will keep cycling back, and they keep bringing up those same feelings, and they keep creating those same arguments. And so this is something that I feel is very important for relationships. So if you have people that you would like to have better relationships with, these kinds of things usually happen with the people that we love. They're usually either our kids, our spouses, our girlfriends, our boyfriends, our partners, or our parents, or even siblings. Really, it is usually those who we love the most that can hurt us the most. And usually the people we love are people that we hurt the most, even though we're not trying to hurt them. And so this concept is something that I had to learn how to embrace in my own life, and now I see it working for me, and I want to just share that concept with you guys. Just to give you guys a background of where I came from, I kind of told you that I was a Utah girl, but I am from a big LDS family and the youngest of 6 kids. And growing up in this religion, you are taught that you have a plan that you need to follow, that God has placed a plan out. And if you follow the plan that God has laid out for you, then you will have eternal happiness. You will have eternal joy. Well, there were some things that happened in my life that I was checking off all the boxes, doing everything right, doing everything that I knew according to the plan. And some things happened in my life to where I ended up not having joy. Not only did I not look forward to having joy in my eternal life, but currently I was plagued by all these things that were hard to overcome. And as I grew older and I started realizing that you're not promised happiness, you're not promised joy, no matter what plan that anyone puts out to you, unless you can understand how to have the joy and create it for yourself, that joy won't come unless you work for it and you decide to make changes in your own life. And I'm going to explain how that works a little bit better for you. Going from believing that I could follow a plan and having that happiness, and then finding that I wasn't happy and I didn't have joy in my life, I decided to really take a look inside and figure out what I needed to change, what I needed to do to make it so that I could have that joy. So when I began my journey in trying to find the ultimate joy in the happiness that I knew that I was supposed to be feeling, I realized that I needed to figure out how to have a superpower to not have to react to these situations, not to let my resentment, my anger, all the arguments that I was having, all these things that kept cycling around and making me feel the way that I was feeling. I knew I needed to find some type of superpower to be able to not feel those things. And so I began thinking about when things would cycle around, when things would happen to me, I just would choose not to have a feeling towards those things. And the problem with going down this path was that it was a place that I didn't want to be. going down that path and not feeling the feelings that I was feeling would ultimately cause me to take away the empathy that I had for people. And empathy is a huge thing that we need to have. If you take empathy out of the equation, then you're in it for yourself. You're only in it for you to see success for yourself, and you could care less about anyone else. And this was something that I had to learn the hard way. My husband and I had a business partner who was a close friend, who was a neighbor, who we spent many weekends, many nights as families together. This was somebody in our lives that was supposed to be caring for our well-being. And we went into a partnership with them in a business, and we fully trusted them. We truly believed that they cared for us and others around them. This business partner of ours took everything from us. They took our income. They completely set everything up to be able to take everything from us when they were ready to move on. And when things started getting really good for the business and we started to see more growth happening for our future, this is when they decided to completely take everything away from us. And the thing that I learned in that situation was he was that type. He didn't have any type of empathy. He actually planned to get rid of us from the beginning. And it just made me realize that you have to have empathy. You have to care for others, and you have to want them to rise with you. If you don't want that, then you just become a cruel person. And you might see successes in the goals that you have, but ultimately you don't have successes because you lose the people who really matter most around you. You lose the things in life that actually make you a human being. And that was something that I wasn't going to subscribe to. I could never be that person. Seeing the type of person they were and knowing how they decided to live their life, they're just manipulating people into believing the things that they put out there, and they take from people constantly. So seeing how this all played out in my life, I knew that having the superpower to not feel things wasn't the right way to go about what I was trying to figure out. And I realized that I needed to learn how to make it work for me. Being a creator, being able to create the life that you want, means that you do have control over these situations. So here's the reality of it. You have to have a feeling. Everything that you feel is very real. The problem is that we all view our worlds from our own perspective, right? So we all watch our own movies. My movie is different than my husband's movie. My movie is different than my kids' movies. Even though we live in the same house, those are different movies that are playing out for us every single day. And I'm actually reading this book that reminded me of this concept, and that's why I wanted to share it with you. It's called The Untethered Soul, and I'll put a link to it as well so that you guys can read it and follow it, because it has this exact concept just said in a different way. But here's the key. So anything that you feel, the hurt, the anger, the resentment, the arguing that happens, it's all real. It's all happening. And you should definitely feel those feelings. And instead of pushing away those feelings and pushing that down lower to where you can hopefully forget about it, but you won't ever forget about it. It'll still be in the back of your mind. It'll still be there, and it'll still come back. And it'll continue to be a cycle in your life unless you make the real changes to create joy and create the freedom, because all these things hold you back from everything that you want to accomplish. They really do. And especially if you want better relationships with your family and your friends and the people that you love, this is something that I would definitely try to incorporate in your life. Just recently, a couple weeks ago, I was finding that I was arguing with one of my kids all the time. And it was so frustrating and so exhausting. And I just felt like I was just being an awful mom. And I didn't know how to get out of this cycle of all these arguments. Then I remembered how I made this work for me in past experiences with my husband. And this is something that both my husband and I incorporate into our relationship. And it is life-changing, you guys. It is so life-changing when you can understand this concept. So definitely make sure in all of these things that cycle around in your life that you feel those feelings. But guess what? You have to stop the cycle. You have to stop it from keep coming around and feeling those feelings all over again. It doesn't mean that it's not going to cycle around. It just means that you need to get past what this thing is that's causing you to have these feelings. And how you do that is, instead of pushing it down to where you don't have to deal with it, you need to deal with it now. So there were a lot of things that my husband and I would argue about, and it would be the same thing that would cycle around all the time. And there are things, hurt feelings, that sometimes in relationships we bring up past experiences because we think it'll help our argument. But the reality of it is those things were in the past. You can't change them. All you can do is change for the future. All you can do is better yourself for your future and for your relationship. So you can't keep grabbing those things in the past. You have to deal with those things and let it pass through you. So that's kind of how they talk about it in the book, is when you have these things that come up and that keep cycling back around, and these thoughts that you push down, they're going to keep coming up until you deal with them. So you have to deal with them. You have to feel that emotion. You have to understand that it is an important process for you to get through it, so that you're not pushing it down, so it's passing through you and you don't have to be affected by it anymore. Because that thing will still come around, but then you're going to have a different perspective and you're going to have a better feeling, and it's going to pass through you instead of getting stuck in your heart, stuck in your brain, stuck in all your thoughts and everything that you do every day. If my husband and I get in an argument, we cannot function. You can't go to work and be good at work. You can't be good to your kids. It's kind of, I watched a show one time, How I Met Your Mother, and they talk about the cycle of yelling. Say you're at work and your boss yells at you for something that happened, whether it was your fault or not, doesn't matter, but you got yelled at. Well, guess what? You turn around and you yell at your assistant because you just had all of that anger, that emotion that was all inside of you. So you turn around and you go yell at your assistant. Well, your assistant goes home, yells at her husband. Her husband goes to the kids and yells at the kids. So it's this cycle of yelling that doesn't even need to happen in the first place. And how we can make this work for us is we got to make sure that we feel those feelings and deal with those emotions. Sometimes when my husband and I are out, one of us might say something that hurts the other person's feelings. And the better thing to do, I'm not one that I like to have a lot of contention, so I'll wait till another time. But you got to make sure that you deal with this more recent than later, because something that I had to learn is not to let things bottle up and then just explode on my husband, because that's kind of an easier way to deal with things in the moment if you don't want to have to deal with them right now. But you need to bring those things up and you need to move past them. So if I have an issue with something that happened with my husband and I when we're out and about with friends and stuff, I say, hey, you said this and it hurt my feelings. Can you please try not to have those conversations or say those things in the future, because that really hurts me. So you need to make sure that you deal with those things right then and there, because all of a sudden, if you don't, you'll be pushing all these different things down, then you're going to explode and have like 20 things to tell them, and it's going to be harder for them to take. They're going to feel attacked instead of being able to just feel like it's something you guys can work through and move forward. Recently, the thing that I was able to see how it worked for me was I just was constantly arguing with one of my kids, and I just didn't I was so exhausted and it was so hurtful, all the things that were being said. I didn't want that to be the relationship that I had with my kids. And I knew that I had to stop this cycle of what was happening. Well, here's the thing that I learned. In any conversation, any type of hurt, any argument, there's always someone who's a little bit more of an antagonist, and then the other person is the person who responds to that person. So first of all, in an argument or any type of hurt or anger that you're going through, ask yourself this one question: am I the antagonist, or am I reacting to what this person is antagonizing me with? And that's an important question, because if you take a step back and you realize that you're the one bringing up all the past issues, you're the one that keeps bottling stuff up and making it so that you explode one day instead of dealing with it right now and being able to let those emotions, let that experience, let that thing pass through you, you're causing to create all these bad emotions and have things constantly make you angry. Even when you don't even know what's making you angry, sometimes those feelings just come up. So are you the one who is the antagonist throwing all these things at the other person? If that's you, if you're bringing up all these past issues that are over with and you just haven't gone past them, then you need to sit down and say, hey, I've had an issue with these things, but I'm not going to allow this to stop me from my growth. All of a sudden, by pulling up all those bad things that happened in your past and all these thoughts that you have, you are creating those feelings for yourself. If you are able to deal with those things and let those things go, then you don't have to be the antagonist in the argument. You don't have to be the one throwing all those issues out, because guess what? We do that as human beings because we want to prove a point. And we think that our point is the correct point. But guess what? If you're arguing over and over and over again, or you keep feeling the same hurt, it has to do with something that you need to change within yourself, because you can't change the other person. But if you are antagonizing the other person and creating triggers that you know will hurt at them, and you know that you're digging at them, if you're digging at that person with things from the past or things that will help to prove your argument, if you're the one bringing those things up to hurt the other person, you are probably the antagonist, and you got to take a look at yourself and get rid of those things that you're bottling up, and get rid of those things and stop being the victim. You are in a victim mentality, and until you get out of that victim mentality, you won't stop antagonizing these situations. So make sure that you really focus on being able to stop pushing down those emotions, to deal with them and let them pass. Let them go away. Only you can create your freedom from that. So on the other side of it, things that can happen is you might be having an argument with somebody that is an antagonist, and they're constantly bringing up things to hurt you. And they constantly usually bring up the same things over and over again, because guess what? That antagonistic personality will bring those things up because it's their power. It's like, okay, I have all of these weights, all of this ammunition. I have all of these weapons right here, and I'm going to throw them at you, right? Who wants to be that person? Nobody wants to be like having all these weapons to try and control the situation, but that's their power. So how, as somebody who's dealing with somebody who is antagonizing the situation, how do you deal with that? How do you get past it? How do you get through those triggers? Well, that's also something that you have to do for yourself, because you can't control them, you can't change them. But this is so on key with how you deal with this situation. These things that they're throwing at you, these weapons, this artillery that they have saved up to throw at you to prove a point, to keep that power, we're only giving that power to them because of our reaction, the way that we react to it. Of course, you're going to feel the hurt, the anger, and you're going to want to argue back. But here's the power behind it. You take all that power, all that ammunition away from that person, away from that situation by not allowing that ammunition to pierce you. By not allowing those things to get stuck within your heart, within your brain, within your thoughts, within the emotional side of you. You need to make sure that when they use those trigger points, that you can control the reaction that you have. So let me just explain how this has worked in my own life with my own child. So we were getting in these arguments, and some of the things that my child would argue with me about, they would always bring up past experiences of how I've done things for their other siblings over them, and how I kind of favor one of the other kids more than I favor them. And guess what? My child subconsciously knows I'm going to be affected by this. They know that this is going to cause me hurt and anger and make me upset to where I'm going to get angry. And this is what fuels these arguments. It didn't matter what the arguments were about. It was always these past experiences, these situations that they were living in that victim's mentality and bringing up to me constantly, because I was fueled by what that they were triggering me with, and I was creating anger within inside of me, and it wasn't making me happy. So the thing that I learned in being a creator of my own world is that I don't have to let those triggers that my child was using against me affect me at the level that I was allowing it to affect me on. And so what I consciously was trying to do in any of these situations was, when they would use these triggers, this ammunition against me, I wouldn't allow myself to react to it. Because guess what? I felt those emotions. I knew what place it was putting me in. And I was the only one who was going to free myself from those emotions. Realizing that they were in that victim mentality, and they are not soon to be out of that victim mentality, I needed to let it go. I needed to let them be stuck in their victim mentality, but let myself move on and not react to those situations. So our reaction is something big when I talk about creating our own joy and creating the freedom to have joy. We've got to control our reaction. Definitely have to feel those emotions, and you definitely have to be able to move past those things. But sometimes those things that people use as triggers, as ammunition, we just need to make sure that we let it pass through us, that we let it go. Because guess what? Those things are still going to cycle around. I'm still going to have these things come up with this child. But guess what? Ever since I made the choice not to react to those triggers, we haven't had an argument. These were arguments that I was having 3 times a week for many, many months. And it was frustrating because it was exhausting, and I love my kids and I want them to have a healthy life, but sometimes you have to take a step back and realize how you can help the situation instead of prove a point. So you guys, there is so much freedom that comes from understanding this. If you're going to be a creator of your own world and create happiness, then you need to realize how to take action to make sure that you have that freedom, that you have the happiness, and let those things pass through you that don't need to mean so much. If somebody's stuck in being a victim and they're constantly throwing all this ammunition at you because they want to win an argument, then you need to learn how to create a better reaction to it. and how to feel the emotions, but let it pass through you so it's not something that constantly comes up in your situation, in your relationships. If you are the antagonizer and you're bringing up all these things and you're collecting all this ammunition, are you winning? You don't win. You will never win. Arguing points with other adults, you will never win, because guess what? Adults and teenagers are stubborn, and we all have our reasons for feeling the way that we are. We all are watching our own movie, and we all have our own way of feeling about things. You can't control the way other people are. You can't control the way they react. You can't control if they're going to be the antagonist, but you can control what your reaction is. And when you truly get past those things that are causing all that angst in your heart, all of a sudden you'll have freedom and you'll have better relationships. One thing that my husband and I do, and this was really hard for me, this was something my husband kind of pushed on me, is I'm one that I like to take it. If we're arguing about something, I want to go think about it. But one thing that I do think has been important in our relationship has been the fact that my husband is always makes me deal with the situation right then and there. Because you don't want to be sitting around spinning it in your head to where you constantly have hurt in your heart. Spinning it through your head so it takes over every emotion and everything within you to be able to accomplish anything in life. You need to feel that freedom, and you only have that freedom by making choices for yourself, because you're not going to be able to control anyone else. In winning arguments, does it make you happy? Being able to figure out how to have freedom and the joy that comes from not reacting to triggers that people put out for us, it's freeing. It's beautiful. It's something that I want for everybody. When you're arguing every day with your spouse, when you're arguing every day with your child, take a step back and realize whether you're the antagonist or you're the one reacting. Make this choice for yourself, because whether you're the antagonist or you're the one reacting to the antagonist, you have the ability to change it. If you are feeling like the victim, you need to get through those issues and you need to let them pass through, because it's not helping your relationship to hold on to those things. There's nothing you or the other person can do to change the past. The only thing that you can do is change what's going on in your future and choose not to be triggered by yourself by those things or triggered by the other person that's antagonizing you. When you learn to let those things go through, when those cycles come back around, you're going to be able to let them go. And you're not going to feel that hurt, that angst, those things that are holding you back. You can just let them go and have better relationships. Guess what, you guys? I have not had arguments with my child for many weeks now, because I made this choice and I wasn't allowing those triggers to affect me anymore. All of a sudden, the power that my child had was let go. And nobody needs to have the power. You just need to have respect and love for each other and open up your hearts and realize where hurt happened and how you can do better for the future. But this is a concept that I love because I've been using it in all of my relationships. If you're fighting with somebody that you love, stop fighting with them and fix it. Because guess what? Tomorrow is only a gift. It's not promised. And if you love those people, make sure that you're making time to fix that hurt, fix those relationships, to stop being the antagonist, to stop reacting to them being the antagonist. Because here's the reality. Both of you love each other, but sometimes it's just hard to live in a space together, or because you want to control what they do. Here's another thing to think about. You usually are being the antagonist when you're trying to push your viewpoints, your thoughts, your lifestyle on somebody else. If you are constantly telling your little brother, sister, your sibling, your parent, your daughter, your child, your son, whatever, if you're constantly telling them how to live their lives and they're a teenager or an adult, they think that they've already got it figured out. So definitely as a parent, you got to keep making those moments happen. But when you're adults, they already know what they want out of life. So you're going to have to just let them be. Because every time you push an expectation on somebody else, you're going to be let down. But what's more important, that they meet your expectations or that you have a good relationship and you find joy in spending time with them? Find the freedom, create the freedom for yourself, and don't try to control other people. Only you can create that. I've seen it happen for me in my own life, and I want that for everybody. I want you guys to also feel that same joy, because relationships are important. And when we figure out how to make our relationships work for us, we are the creators of our own world. Only we have the ability to change that. These cycles that keep coming around, we don't need to feel the pain of them every single time they come around. Let them pass through. Better your life. Find that freedom. You don't know how much freedom you can have by creating that freedom for yourself. And you have to create it. If you don't create it, it's not there. You guys, I love you all. I want everybody to have better relationships. This is a huge thing that has helped me in my life, and that's why I'm gifting it to you. Hopefully it all makes sense, and hopefully you guys can incorporate it into your own lives. But let those things go. Don't bottle them up. Let them pass through, because past emotions, past experiences will only feed into anger and resentment for the future. So get past those things and find and create the joy that you deserve today. Okay guys, I'm excited for this Friday. We're gonna have a chat about nutrition and fitness, and it's with my master trainer that I'm going to have these conversations with. So let's learn from the expert, and I can't wait to